I'm 93 years old, and even though my body slows down a little more each day, at this age, people no longer chase after anything. So finally I get to see life with painful clarity. And there's one truth I want you to know right now. Before time takes away your power to choose the way it once took mine, the most important thing in life is not how much you achieve, not the accomplishments others can see, not the things you try to accumulate over many years. The most important thing is how much real time and real attention you give to the people you love, whether you are truly present with them with your whole heart. It took me nearly a century to understand this. Looking back at my youth, I realized most of my life passed not in a state of living, but in a state of busyness. So busy I didn't see who was quietly drifting away from me. So busy I believed small moments could wait until tomorrow. So busy I lost the most precious thing before I even knew how precious it was. I'm telling you the story of my life, not to complain, not to make you think about death or loss, but to wake you up from the indifference I once lived in. What I lost, you still have the chance to keep. And I want to start with the day I lost the most important thing in my life. A completely ordinary day. So ordinary I had no idea it would change everything. I met my wife in 1956. She wasn't the kind of woman who lit up a room. She was the kind who lit up your whole life. We married young, foolish, and believing love could stand against anything. And for the first few years I thought we were right. Our little kitchen was always lit every evening. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that was enough. In the evenings, we sat on the front porch steps, talking about truly big things in very small voices, about the future, about hope, about the children not yet born. I swear to God, those years were so beautiful. I thought they would last forever. Then life did what it always does. It changed direction without warning. I got promoted, then promoted again. You know, the kind of promotion people call a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I believed in it. Believed so much, I threw myself into the grind. Like an animal forced to run until exhaustion. I told myself, just a few years, then everything will be fine. That just a few years was exactly what slowly and silently killed my marriage. My wife didn't complain. She just went quiet. A strange silence, light as dust, but heavy enough to cover everything we once had. I didn't realize that silence was saying, "You're drifting away from me." And then came that fateful winter morning. The air was bitterly cold. I was late for a meeting. I hurriedly stuffed files into my briefcase, threw on my coat, and prepared to rush out the door. She stood in the kitchen, the yellow light falling on her tired face that I didn't bother to notice. She said, "Can we talk tonight when you get home?" A simple sentence. A plea wrapped in calm. And me, I answered with the familiar line of someone who thinks they have plenty of time. Yeah, tonight. That tonight never came. In the middle of the morning, she collapsed on the kitchen floor. A silent and cruel stroke. She was only 36. When I rushed home, the kitchen was still warm. The coffee cup she poured for me was still on the table. The dish towel still carried the scent of soap. But everything that mattered most was gone. And let me tell you the cruelest part. It wasn't her death that destroyed me. Death comes to us all. What destroyed me was the fact that she had lived her final years alone. Even when I was right there, I had treated our marriage like a waiting room for a better version of the future. A future I always said later about, but later never arrived. 3 days after the funeral, I went back home. Not because I was strong, but because I had to talk to the insurance agent. And when I opened her desk drawer, I found a stack of letters she wrote to me, but never sent. The first line of the top letter read, "I miss you. I miss the old you." I realized the bitter truth. I didn't just lose her in one morning. I lost her in every evening. I said, I'm too busy. In every conversation I half listened to. In every ordinary moment, I treated as if they were infinite. That was the day I understood. I had lost the most important thing in my life without even knowing it. And I wish I could say the shock was enough to change me. But the truth is, it wasn't. I wish I could say that after my wife's death, I changed, slowed down, learned to cherish every moment. But life doesn't work like the stories people tell each other to feel better. The truth is, just a few months after the funeral, I slipped right back into my old self, rushing, distracted, believing time was something I could spend endlessly. I had lost her because of my delay, but that delay clung to me like a habit that refused to leave. My older brother was the first to remind me of it, though he never meant to. We used to be close when we were young, but life pulled us in different directions. One day he called me. His voice had aged a lot, but he still tried to sound cheerful. "Come visit when you have time. It's been too long since we sat together." I answered without thinking, "Next week." "Okay, I'm really busy these days." That next week never came. Then one afternoon, while I was in the office, head buried in reports and meeting schedules, the phone rang. My brother had collapsed in his yard from a massive heart attack. The last time we spoke lasted less than a minute. 1 minute. I lost my brother in a single breath, and I had also robbed myself of the last chance to sit with him on that old wooden chair we once fixed together as kids. But this second pain, cruel as it was, still wasn't enough to fully wake me. My son was the clearest example. One evening, he came to me in my study, clutching the hem of his shirt like he was hiding something. He said quietly, "Dad, something happened at school." I was typing an email, mind strung tight like a wire, and only replied, "Yeah, go ahead, I'm listening." "Not really," I heard with my ears, but my mind was still on the screen. He spoke a few sentences, then fell silent. I didn't realize that was the moment he needed me most. The story ended in silence, the same silence I had grown too familiar with from my late wife. Many years later, when he moved to another state because he needed his own space, I looked back and understood the distance between us didn't start with that move. It started from that moment when my little boy believed typing an email was more important than his pain. And then there was a childhood friend, the kind you think will be with you your whole life. Before he moved to Seattle, he invited me on one last fishing trip. A small trip, nothing special, but a way to say goodbye without calling it that. I checked my calendar, sighed, and said the familiar line, "Some other time." "I'm really busy." He nodded, smiled, and said it was fine. 10 years later, when we ran into each other by chance, he smiled, but his eyes were sad. "I waited for you that day." Just 3 words. And those 3 words hit like a slap from life to anyone who always thinks they have more time. I didn't know that careless refusal had faded our friendship over an entire decade. No arguments, no anger, just a growing distance over the years, like a boat drifting from shore without anyone noticing. Those years I didn't realize I was losing my life, bit by bit, not through big decisions, but through moments I thought didn't matter at all. A call not returned, a meetup never scheduled, a story not truly listened to. Life didn't take from me with storms. It took with small drops of water, falling steadily and quietly, until I looked back and realized the glass had long been empty. In the later years, my mistakes no longer took the form of missed calls or last-minute cancelled trips. They were quieter, and perhaps crueler. They crept into my life through the most ordinary moments, the moments I once thought weren't worth paying attention to. Every Friday evening, my daughter and I had a little tradition, the 2 of us having dinner together at a diner not far from home. It used to be the best time of the week, when she told me about school play rehearsals, her new best friend, the things she was excited about. I used to listen with the patience only a father can have, but then, like everything else in my life, that tradition slowly eroded over time. I started bringing my phone to the table. Then I checked email while she talked. Then I scrolled news while she went quiet. One evening, as we sat across from each other in silence, each staring at a small glowing blue screen, I felt my daughter looking at me. She said something light as wind but sharp as a knife. "You're always busy, Dad, even when you're sitting right here." I laughed it off, said I was just checking quickly, said I would change. But I didn't change, and the sad part is, she knew it before I did. The distance that followed didn't come like a blow. It came like a long shadow, quiet, gentle but never leaving. I also had the habit of taking family photos every holiday. I liked capturing the moments, the Christmas tree, Thanksgiving dinner, birthday candles. But one day, when I opened those old albums, I realized I remembered nothing about the moments in the pictures. I remembered the important business dinner I had to reply to after the party. I remembered worrying about driving in the snow. I remembered having to clean up the pile of dishes. But I didn't remember anyone's eyes at that time. I didn't remember what we laughed about. Those photos, which should have been proof of happiness, became proof of a life where I stood in the frame but wasn't truly living in the moment. Then there was my mother. She was old, frail, and living alone in our old town. She sent me a long letter, the longest she had ever written. She said she missed me, missed hearing me call her, missed the times I showed up unexpectedly just to have dinner with her. I opened the letter, read a few lines, then set it aside because the phone rang. I planned to reply over the weekend. That weekend passed, then another week. The letter stayed right there on my desk, while her hands no longer had the strength to write another one. I lost that chance, not because of tragedy, but because of procrastination. A procrastination so small, I once thought it had no consequences. I lost her the way I lost so many others, not with a fierce storm, but with prolonged delay, with the naive belief that there would always be a next time. Looking back, I realized life didn't steal anything from me with terrifying moments. It took everything with small moments I didn't notice, moments I saw as harmless, meaningless, worthless, and in the end, all those moments gathered together, like grains of sand falling in the hourglass of my life, until I realized I had stood, watching time flow away without doing anything to hold it back. I didn't lose my life in one painful moment. I lost it in thousands of small moments I thought didn't matter at all. And then as old age drew near, and I no longer had the strength to dodge, I began to see clearly the lessons that a lifetime of losses had tried to teach me, over and over. Not through lofty philosophies, but through quiet scars on the heart. Scars shaped like the faces that left before I learned how to truly be present. The first lesson I understood is presence matters more than the length of time you spend with someone. I lived with my wife for 8 years, but honestly, I was probably truly present for only a few hundred small moments. You can be next to someone for many years, but if your mind is elsewhere, those years mean nothing. One fully present hour, one real look, one undistracted listening, they can outweigh an entire decade of rushed coexistence. The second lesson: love doesn't exist if it's not shown through small actions every day. I once thought love was a feeling in the heart, something the other person would just understand. I was wrong. Love is the small things: touching someone's hand when they're tired, listening to a story that seems unimportant, making them a cup of coffee, turning off the phone while they talk. Love is the first thing to die when we're busy, and the thing that needs daily nurturing with gestures so simple people often get lazy about them. The third lesson: the ordinary, is what you'll remember most when you look back on life. When I was young, I thought the best memories would be distant trips, big achievements, explosive moments. But now, sitting in this quiet room, what I remember is the sound of my wife singing along to the radio while cooking. Friday evenings, sitting with my daughter in that little diner. The moment my brother laughed hard at a story I no longer recall clearly. The ordinary, mundane, even seemingly insignificant things. That's where life truly hides. The fourth lesson, don't wait for the right time, because it never comes on its own. Life doesn't send calendar reminders, doesn't give you an official appointment to love or repair. If you don't actively create the moment, you'll lose it. I said some other time too many times, and that other time took the people I loved out of my life, one by one. If you have something to say it now. If you have someone to see them now. If you have something to fix it now. Because the right time is just life's way of testing whether you have the courage to live. The final lesson, you can't get people back, but you can change how you live with the ones still here. I can't bring my wife back to life. I can't go back to sit with my brother for one more afternoon. I can't hear my son finish the story I once missed, but I still have my daughter. I still have a few old friends. I still have people who can feel my presence, if I'm willing to give it to them. And with the few years I have left, that's the only thing I can do right. Now, looking back at a life stretched out behind me like a road full of wrong turns I chose, I can only tell you one last thing. The only thing I wish someone had told me long ago. I can't go back to the past to fix what I missed, but you can avoid living my life. You don't need a grand plan. You don't need to change your whole life in one day. You just need one call, one evening without a phone, one real hug, one moment you choose presence over busyness. Start today before too late becomes reality. If what I've shared touches you, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. See you in the next video, where we learn together how to live a life with no regrets.